How you doing? I'm Tim Keane with the City Planning Department for the City of Atlanta, and I'm here to introduce Maria Saporta, which I'll do in a second. I wanted to thank and recognize David Zaparanek and Kathy Evans from my office, who do an amazing job. David leads the Arborist Division now, and he's doing an amazing job. We appreciate his work so much. I want to recognize Councilmember Madeline Archibong, who's here as well in the front. He doesn't like it when I say this, but I have been known to say I'm the commissioner of the Department of Madeline Archibong. And one other person, real quick, Oscar Harris is here. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but one of the great architects in the history of Atlanta and an inspiration in Cascade. He has an amazing forest that he cares for off Benjamin Mays in the southwest part of the city. Real quickly, so I'll get to Maria in just a second. I'm going to do this real fast, but so this is nothing new what I'm going to say to you, but I know there's people in this room that don't know about it. There's others that do. There's people in this room that are tired of hearing me discuss this. Michael Hallecky, for instance. But for about a year, we've been discussing something called the Atlanta City Design, which the Planning Department is doing. And having gotten here relatively recently, I just want to mention that Atlanta is not a place that is known as a place that's really good at planning. And so this city design project is our effort to change that. And it's different. It's not a typical plan. It's really intended to elevate all these great conversations that are happening in Atlanta right now to a level that people can understand them and be inspired by them. And so, of course, the person that we brought in to the planning department to do this work is Ryan Gravel. And so this part of the work is nearing its completion. We're opening our design studio on Cascade Road this Saturday. We'll have a community day from 10 to 2 at the corner of Cascade and Beecher near the forest that was just shown to you. And we'll have the city design up there for this. But let me just say that the thing for me is that Atlanta has a bit of, to me, has a bit of an identity crisis. And what I mean is that, and all I really care about is the city, like walking down the street and walking around. I mean, that's the main thing. But it's known as a city of highways, that kind of separate the neighborhoods, and the public realm of the city is seen as highways, and it's not that. We that live here know it isn't. But the city design project is presenting an Atlanta that's different, and the way we have organized the design is around how we're going to connect people, how we're going to connect nature, and how we're going to connect people to nature. And if you look at this thing, this relationship of urbanism and nature is fundamental to it. It is what we're suggesting Atlanta is all about. And a growing Atlanta, an Atlanta 20 years from now that includes 1.2 million people, not 470,000, will be a much better city to live in because the urbanism will be better and nature will be better. And those two go hand in hand. If we don't achieve that, we will not have achieved anything. We will stop growing at some point if we don't achieve those things. And so one aspect of it, and there's a lot in this that's about nature, but is something that we're calling the urban ecology framework. And I was fascinated by Joan's quote from Aldo Leopold, because when I started talking about this is exactly what I said, is we have to get the best team in this country in Atlanta to understand what this place was like before we were here. And what of that place can be protected still, what of it can be restored, and what of it can be accentuated by urban things. And so we, about a year ago, started a process to get the best group of people in this country to put together this urban ecology framework in complete, being inspired by that quote and this reality in Atlanta. We are ready to move forward with this thing. We've already selected the team. I mean, we are just waiting to start this race, and that will be coming soon. So anyway, that's not something new I'm talking about. This is something we've really been working on since I got here. I know that. So Maria Saporta, when I learned of Maria Saporta, I was actually in the mayor's office in Charleston, South Carolina. I was telling my boss, Joe Riley, that I was thinking about going to Atlanta, and he looked at me kind of strange, and he said, it seems unsettled. Is what he said. Anyway, we talked through it, and he eventually thought it was a good idea. But he also mentioned, though, that there was this amazing, lovely person, smart, inspiring, that he'd met in Atlanta named Maria Saporta. I didn't know, of course, Maria. I didn't know anybody in Atlanta. And so he was inspired by her upon a visit he made here to speak on a panel. And I have to tell you that since I've gotten to Atlanta, Maria has helped me in so many ways. And quietly giving me advice about everything. And you all know that she cares about this city, I think, more than anybody I've met. There's no question about it. I mean, in a genuine way, not in her writing, but just in her person. She cares about Atlanta in ways that I'm inspired by, and I'm thrilled to be able to here to introduce Maria Saporta, who will introduce the panel and handle those festivities. So Maria, come on up.
My panelist members, if we can come up. I'm so sorry.
Easy, John.
Testing. Can you all hear this? Okay, great. And it is really a room of friends here. It's just amazing to be here, and it's not just friends, but people with a kindred spirit, and it feels inspiring. It was inspiring to hear your words. Thank you. Yeah, and Joan, and then Catherine. What amazing stories! I would like to start by introducing the panel, and I can't outdo what Tim Keane just did. I don't know if he's already left, and I was hoping he might be here because I might call on some questions for him later, but if he's gone, he escaped. Oh no, there you are. Are you sneaking out, or would you be available? Hey, this is a moment. I do want you to hear one thing, though. Last week, I did moderate a panel of the different people running for mayor of Atlanta. And I asked them all sorts of bizarre, fun questions. But I did ask them, would they adopt and pursue the Atlanta City Design Project? And every single one of them said yes. I asked them about your job. That was a little, no. No, actually, they were extremely complimentary of the work Tim Keane has done. And I think that is one of the things. We are in a political year of transition, and we don't want to lose the momentum that has been started in Atlanta. And I think it's imperative upon all of us to make sure that the people who are going to be our leaders live up to what we want them to live up to. So thank you, Tim, for that introduction. I'm going to start here by introducing Jackie Echols. I can't remember which battle we first joined on, but it does go so far back. You've left Atlanta at least once, if not more than that, since those battles. But Jackie has been fighting for trees ever since I met her, and long before probably I met her. She has been centered on Atlanta's urban environment. She is the leader of the South River Watershed Alliance. She took that over in 2010. And over the last 7 years, she has endeavored to increase community support for the South River by raising community awareness, building partnerships, and promoting the river and its ecosystem as a valuable natural resource. She has played a very important role on the Atlanta Tree Conservation Commission, and I have called her more than once about what can we do to save more trees. And that's going to be, I'm going to continue to ask that question. And Darryl Haddock. I mean, he knows, and Bruce knows this. Wawa. I mean, just think about that. Wawa. You know, it's just one of the best organizations in Atlanta, the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, that has been, and, you know, he said, Wawa, that sounds like water. Yeah. But as we heard, Joan, that water is connected directly to trees and to our green space. He is currently, Darryl Haddock is currently the Environmental Education Director for the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. And he completed a BA in Geography at Jacksonville University and is currently enrolled at Georgia State and plans to receive a master's degree in Geoscience and Applied GIS. He has about 20 years professional experience as an environmental scientist and works for a consulting firm. So, thank you, Darryl, for being here. We have I don't want to say a last-minute substitute, but he's used to it because he used to be a substitute teacher, he told me. Mario Cambardella, he is a landscape architect, half Italian, half Texan, I learned today. But he grew up in the woods. Actually, this I found fascinating. He grew up on Timberland Drive in Sandy Springs. So he says that he works for the City of Atlanta's Office of Resiliency, and he is Atlanta's first urban ag director. But there's more to this. To the best of the city's knowledge, Mario is the first person in the country to hold that title as an urban ag director. He says there are a few other cities now that may have played into that. And last but certainly not least, and obviously we know Joan, but John Wegner was Emory University's first campus environmental officer. He joined the Faculty of Environmental Sciences in Emory College after teaching 23 years at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. I first met John when y'all were touting your first LEED building on campus and showing me everything that you were doing. He says, I'm just a professor, and added he's not tenured. Says, I've already been fired once, and that's a whole other story, but we won't get into it. It didn't involve trees, right? It involved a road. So we will, that's a whole other story. But since moving to Atlanta, his interest has turned to urban ecology. And he joined Emory University's Senate Committee on the Environment in 1998, and he has assisted the university in development of its green building program. What I would like to do is really have a conversation with all of us. And the point of the whole conversation is, what can we do to preserve Atlanta's tree cover? And we can think small, think large, tactically, strategically, spiritually, whatever way you think we need to do to create a movement to really do exactly what Joan and Catherine are saying we as a society need to do. We have something special in Atlanta, and we don't want to lose it. So I'm going to just start in the order that I introduced everyone, and give me your best shot. If you were queen for a day, Or a week or a year, 100 days. Let's say 100 days. I'll take that. All right, I want to hear your best plan of
Okay.
how we can
How we can
save
do this.
Atlanta's tree cover.
Okay. I served on the tree commission as a member and then co-chair for about a year. So I served 2 years, I think, if I remember correctly, on the commission. And I saw a lot. I saw how the good intentions of a pretty good ordinance was constantly undercut in so many ways. And I don't know, it's my understanding that it's being rewritten or in some fashion.
That's when we need Tim, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I don't
and we
know
have
how that's
Madeline
going.
here.
But I think that's a question to really get to the heart of. If you're rewriting it, for what reason and what do you expect to get out of it? But my involvement with trees, environment over the past 20 years, I've learned that you need leadership at the level necessary to reach your goal. And I mean leadership at City Hall. Leadership somewhere that can make it happen. And I think we have a really good opportunity with the city council and mayoral elections coming up. It's an opportunity to really push forward. This was a wonderful presentation. Even I learned a lot from it. But you have to get folks leaders to lead your effort, to buy into the sentiment of preserving Atlanta's tree canopy. It's not enough for them to come to a meeting and say, I support parks and I support trees. Who doesn't? I mean, that's an insult. We need to, I think, get them to commit. And then as a group, the thousands of people in Atlanta who supports trees can hold them accountable. But as long as we can duck and dodge that leadership at the top, because for 5 or 6 years, a bunch of us worked to separate the last 19 square miles of Atlanta's combined sewer. We worked the community. We won the fight in the community. There was a poll taken, financed by the city of Atlanta, and even though the questions were slanted towards the answers that they wanted to receive, the result of the poll was still, let's solve the problem. We will pay more to solve the problem. Still, at the end of the day, it didn't happen. And it's primarily because we didn't have the leadership, the folks who can just jettison the whole thing. And that's what's important. I've been doing this, like I said, a long time, and if it's one thing I've learned, that's important. You need someone high enough up to champion your cause to get you to where you want to go.
Okay. And Darryl?
I think the answer that comes to my mind is that we have to build the movement also at the top and at the bottom. We've got to simultaneously create the energy in the community so that we take the community along. As many know, we've got communities that are disconnected from nature, and these were strategic, in some ways, activities that turned us away from the nature in our backyards. For example, we started to use our creeks and streams for sewage. And so when you look at how people react and respond to our urban waters, it's not by surprise that we don't have a high value or connection to our green spaces in some communities. And so what Wawa has tried to do over the last few years is to be very intentional about an environmental justice framework that really speaks to communities where they are and to meet them at things that they appreciate. And so we started out kind of listening to or working with the EPA, and the EPA kind of uses a collaborative problem-solving approach, a collaborative problem-solving model. And I think the reason why that didn't get us as far along beyond separating the Utoy Creek basin was that urban systems are complex. And where you might see successes in collaborative problem-solving in rural communities because you might have single issues, or you're not able to do that in a system as complex, the ecosystem as complex as Atlanta. And so Wawa has pivoted a little bit in terms of reaching out to the community through something called appreciative inquiry. And so this is where we work with communities to see what is the value, kind of asset mapping in communities. Because if you ask community members, if you ask residents, how do you feel? There's a fatigue with this idea of always problem solving. If we're only going to talk about the blight, if we're only going to talk about how many parts per billion we're being impacted by this or that, then you really can't move towards a movement. But if we talk about like what,
But you're king for 100 days, so what are you going to do?
So we're going to, I think, the approach I say is to look at the assets, to see the old growth forest as an asset, to get behind that, and I think we could get substantive change and movement building, because now we have something that we can champion.
Mario.
Well, honor and privilege to be here. Stephanie Stuckey wanted to be here. She got called away to California for the day, so just privileged to be here with all of you and sharing my first 100 days. I'm not going to be replacing anybody, I'm sure, but probably when you think about urban agriculture, you're probably thinking of a raised bed box. Mm-hmm. And I want you to think outside the raised bed box. And I want you to think about urban agriculture as food producing landscapes. And not just food producing for you and me, or for just somebody that likes mushrooms, but for everything and everyone. So, and urban agriculture can carry the 4 values that sustainability touches on, but I want to see it go more, because we can talk about social responsibility or cultural relevancy of food-producing landscapes, which have a significant role. We can talk about economic development. Does it make sense? And trust me, so many people have asked me or told me that it doesn't, but I can feel like I can prove them wrong. Third, ecological literacy. It could be this tool that provides some of the greatest mysteries of the world. And fourth, and maybe most importantly, for the health, welfare, and nutrition of everyone, not just you and me, but for everything around us. So I guess for the first 100 days, I'd be looking at instilling those values into everything that we're doing, especially as it relates to this food-producing landscape in the city of Atlanta.
And how does that fit with the urban forest, and since you grew up in the woods?
I became a part of it, and I protected it. You plant a tree and you'll defend it.
Okay.
That was great. I like that. Last night, I had the great pleasure of listening to Wes Jackson talk. And what does that have to do with urban forests? I think it has to do with how complex systems are and how we need to completely transform the way we think about agriculture, and I think the way we think about urban forests. I think that's really crucial. And I'm sure this is going to come as a shock, but as an educator, I would spend my first 100 days educating the decision makers. Mm-hmm. I have found that if you actually get people to see what they're looking at, which is a real challenge. I have to do this with students. I take them in the woods and I say, "What's this?" And they go, "Oh, the plant." That once you identify that plant and you tell something about the story of that plant, the natural history of the plant, then the students start to take ownership of it. And I think that that's true for our forests as well. So education, to me, I don't know that it's 100 days, but it's a place to start. And I think part of your presentation, particularly as it related to, we're looking at the forests, but we might be missing most of it because it's below ground, is absolutely essential to get people to understand the interconnectedness and the complexity not only of individual trees within a species, but trees of different species share nutrients. You know, this Douglas fir says, I've got extra nutrients. Birch tree, I'm going to give you some today. Right? That tells me something about the forest operation. It actually tells me about how I would like the human society to work as well. So I'm going to leave it at educating the decision makers so that then they can be educated when they make their decisions. And hopefully they and their constituents can educate each other.
So we need some really good tweets, right? No. Sorry, I'm being bad. Joan, you've been
so
immersed
great
in this.
question. Thank you. Wonderful answers. I think in my first 100 days, I have something really practical that I've been seeing happen that I would like to change. And what I've been seeing happen in the urban setting is, here's a map of our town, and there's the white areas and the green areas, right? The white areas are the places that have already been built, and the roads and all that, and the green areas are empty. So when whoever, developer, A, B, school board, road people, whatever, when they're going to build something new, what they start looking for is the green spots. Oh, there's nothing there. Let's put it there. There's nothing there. Let's put it there. I would change that completely. And you've all got to run for office and help me. The new buildings are going to go in the white spaces. We're going to, especially the spaces that aren't working, we're going to move in there and we're going to put the next new school or the next new road in those places. And the green places will be off limits, especially what I'll call the deep green places, right? Because it's about quality, you know. So there's the, you know, shrubby second growth where the soil's been destroyed. Well, okay, maybe we can put part of the road there. But the places, the high quality, precious places, they should be completely off limits. So that's what I...
That leads into my next question. And I'll tell a 1-minute quick story. I did a story about 2 or 3 weeks ago on the day that the SunTrust Park opened with the people, the Braves folks who were behind the deal. And they're boasting, saying, you know, 3 years ago, there was nothing but woods here.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And, you know, and you go there now, and it's a concrete jungle, a new little city, and you know, one observation, not many trees are there. But the kind of reaction is it's development. It's, you know, this is what Atlanta, its other magic word is development. And I wrote a story kind of with the Braves folks talking about the journey that had brought them to Cobb County. And I got someone who sent me a comment that was priceless. And it said, I want the woods back.
Yeah.
It's too late, right? So how can we as a community respond when someone looks at nothing and there was nothing but woods here? How can we change that equation? And thank you for bringing that up, Jane. How do we do this? And I mean, we're going to chip in here. We're going to. Yes, John. And there is a mic if you want to talk, but you have a nice professorly type voice.
In the woods.
Yeah.
So I would say what would have been in my first 100 days, except Emory University has already done it, is start with this plan. So one of the things that the university did in the 2006 master plan was actually identify first those places where buildings should never be built. And that amounted to about 50% of the campus area that the university committed to, we're never going to build there. The flip side of that, of course, was that we also had to talk to the university about, well, if you want to put new buildings, where can you put them? And so we were having both discussions at once, but the starting point was, where are the forests, where are the important places? Those are the places you're not going to build. Tear down, we're in Whitehall, right? Tear down Whitehall, which is not one of my favorite buildings on campus, and it isn't really a very good use of space, right? It's a 3-story building, and, it's, I think, ugly. So we could make something 5 stories. So it's thinking about things differently. And I think turning the white into the green, and then starting with the green as the background and saying, we can't do that. We need to.
I just have to, I'm a huge believer in historic preservation too, and we tend to look at old buildings in a very similar way as we look at woods, and we need also to think, and I don't know the history of this building, but the thing that gets me are surface parking lots. We have so many surface parking lots, and I don't know if we can just say new buildings have to go in areas where you're going to actually improve I don't know. I haven't become queen for 100 days. Let me, do you have an idea of how you balance that whole, we want to have strong economic development, and how you balance that with beautiful tree covers that we have?
Well, I think you do need a plan, and I think that's what everyone's talking about. You do need a plan, but it's the perspective from which the plan begins. As a friend of mine, I don't know if he's here or not, is always saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Mm-hmm. So when you start to build your plan, what is your plan? What's the logic behind it? Is there really an appreciation for trees? Have they listened? Now, this is the first time I've heard about the city's plan, so I don't know how many people here have, knew about it before Mr. Keane made his announcement.
How many of you were aware of the Atlanta City Design Project, just to take a look?
Great. Okay, so you participated in it, and so hopefully it's a good plan. So that's the question for the audience. Did you see in there something that made you feel good about what you've seen here? Somebody said a little bit, and some people said yes. So I think that's kind of the start of it, because it's hard to get. We talk about organizing people. It's hard to organize people. It is. I've done it for years. It's really hard, and you can't depend on that. And that's happened a lot as well. That can work for you, and that can work against you. Because if you can't show up at City Hall with 20,000 people to make your case, you don't have a case. And that's the key to this. And that's why I opened my original statement about leadership, to have someone that can make it happen with you, so that your goal can be achieved. And that's for me, that's the beginning.
I'm looking at Mario. He was given a special assignment, and now might be a good time before people, yes.
If you have suggestions or questions this evening, write it on this sheet of paper. It's in your folder. I'll be collecting them up at the end of the night, and the Office of Resilience, a couple of our members are here tonight. We'll be recording these and then putting these turning them back out to you via some social media or website channel, so that you can see everybody's comments and questions from this evening, and we'll do our best to answer them as quickly as possible.
And we want your ideas on how we can make a difference. One of the big, oh, I'm sorry, Joan, you wanted to say.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, you wait, Catherine. Yeah, just in case you can't get to Mario. Because
I was just going to let people know, in case they didn't know, that how the rest of the evening is going to go, that after we wrap up the panel, then we're going to hand out the certificates for the forests that are entering the Old Growth Forest Network tonight, and we'll try to keep that very short, in case you're wondering.
Okay. And the engagement piece, really think about, what are ways that we can move the needle. And one thing that really has always concerned me, and it was a point that Catherine made really strongly, is that so much of this is in private hands. Yeah. And, people look at their yard. Oh, I'm scared that limb's going to fall or that tree's going to fall, and all of a sudden you don't have a yard of trees anymore. What can be done? Can we set aside a zoning overlay or whatever to say these are old growth trees or these are special, and I don't know if it's a tree ordinance or what, but say you have to go through extremely high hurdles in order to tear it down. Is that?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that within the tree ordinance, the current tree ordinance, there's a tree matrix, and so there's a valuation already assigned to trees. But I don't think that goes far enough, right? I think that there perhaps is a reevaluation of what is high value, and this idea of the ecological services that certain species provide, and this web, this network that having not just singles but stands of trees provide. So if you have a stand of trees that's working in some high-valued system, how can we kind of elevate that and continue to have educational experiences so that people understand what it is that they have in their backyard? And I think that also, as we talk about stormwater and the implications of managing stormwater, let's include trees in the stormwater ordinance in the mix so that we can say, look, taking out your riparian buffers, kind of developing all the way up to the stream bank is going to cause you erosion problems down the road. Maybe, we can create some incentives that allow people to leave in those riparian buffers, understand what species like willow, water oak do well in those spaces, they're wet footprint trees, whatever. And so just helping residents make better decisions about their property that will allow us to get the protections that we want to see.
Would there be mechanisms, and y'all would know this more than I would, about certain kind of easements? If you have this wonderful home that's surrounded by trees, is there a way to say, okay, I want to make sure that whatever happens on this property does not disturb the trees?
There's certainly conservation easements, and they'll take the highest and best use and give it. There's many conservation fund, Nature Conservancy that can help you with some of the rules and regulations behind some of that. But I'd be remiss if I did not talk about briefly the amendment to the tree recompense calculation, and where some of the funds are going from sort of the tree fund. So when a developer goes and tears down a bunch of trees, they have to recompense. There's a recompense calculation, and they have to put back a certain number of trees based on what they took out. So sometimes
you didn't see Jackie doing this.
Yeah. And this was really cool. I mean, this was an amendment that really has gone to support some of the old growth forests. So, and this happened really because of Stephanie Stuckey, Kathy, a number of the people in this room, Trees Atlanta, Park Pride were all involved with this, the Parks Department. If I left anybody out, I'm really sorry. I'm kind of new at this. But the point is,
Madeline wanted. What?
Councilmember Armstrong, I got it in there. So the tree fund, basically the developers were not having enough land to put back all the trees that they were required to put back, so they put in money. That was the recompense. Now that fund started going up and up, But we're losing space to put back some of those trees. We can't put them all back in parks. We're going to lose some of the open spaces that are kind of needed for the program in the parks. And we're losing available lands to put some of those trees. So one of the ways in which Stephanie looked at an opportunity, Stephanie and the green team at the City of Atlanta looked at opportunity to utilize some of those funds to buy forests, existing trees, in strategic areas with a methodology that was crafted by Kathy and some of the arborists, conservation, a number in Parks Department, so that when we're looking at properties that are greater than 5 acres, that have 80% tree canopy, that and these are kind of the and ors kind of things, but 1,000 caliper inches or 1,000 dBH per acre, and a number of other attributes to some of these properties, so that we can draw down some of those tree trust fund monies to buying some of these forest lands and preserving them forever.
That's so good.
No, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, that's great. And I would just like to add to that. So the improved tree ordinance is very important. I've heard a lot of people talking about it here, so that's wonderful. And the city buying lands. And if you know of a forest, that especially if forest is threatened, to connect with people in the city who might be interested in that. And I just wanted to add one last piece, because I travel all over the country and I see people doing this as individuals, right? We're not all lucky enough to have a lot of resources in the bank, but some of us are. And instead of having that money sit in the bank, what better thing than to put it in the earth and to protect a forest yourself?
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And the value is becoming more and more increased.
I'd like to say that the city arborists go in and improve DBH, dead, disease, and hazardous, so that the developer does not have to pay that kind of money. For example, Peachtree Hills Avenue, 700 trees. This is DBH.
Where was that? On what?
Right now, Peachtree Hills Avenue.
Peachtree Hills. And I know, like the whole thing that happened at Piedmont Hospital, a lot of people had no idea until they saw the trees down, and it's too late. How can we, maybe there is some kind of social media urgent alert. I mean, on Nextdoor, I get lost dog, found cat. Wow. So we need to. What are we going to do? Yeah. Jackie just said when the bulldozer shows up, it's too late. So I know we are running out of time. Let me wrap it up. I'm just going to. Mario, did you have a closing comment?
I just wanted to announce that I know a lot of you go for grants. I know it's a struggle and it's a grassroots effort, but you got to collaborate to compete for some of these grants. You got to collaborate to complete the mission, and the mission is preserving forest. We collaborated with the Parks Department, a number of members of the Green Team in the City of Atlanta. We won a U.S. Forest Service Community Forest Grant. I was 1 month on the job. And we're going to develop the City of Atlanta's first food forest, 7.1 acre site. It's in southeast Atlanta. We have not unveiled it because we're staying very close to the neighborhood for our community engagement, and we haven't really released that until the community has decided how that food forest, which is really in their backyards, should look, feel, and be experienced. So I look forward to talking to everyone more about that, but I really wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that broke my heart was along the southwest side trail of the Beltline where they're putting in an urban farm right there, they cut down a whole grove of trees that was on one edge and to make the farm bigger. So, but I don't think you were there yet. That would not have happened. So let me just conclude this thing. Good intentions of an ordinance were undercut, okay? You need leadership, and you have to get leaders to buy in and to commit. As long as we duck and dodge, it will happen. We have to build a movement at the top and at the bottom. Urban systems are complex, but look at the assets we have. We need to teach ecological literacy, and if you plant a tree, you'll defend it. Spend your time educating the decision makers so they can educate the citizens. Green space, there's nothing there. You have to change the attitude, especially for the deep green places. Identify places where buildings will not be built. But you need a plan. It's hard to organize people. The tree evaluations do not go far enough. We have to figure out ways to protect a stand of trees, and we have to include trees with stormwater. Conservation easements, amendment to the recompense, use these funds to buy forests, and improve tree ordinance is very important. But when the bulldozers show up, it's too late. And our mission here tonight and for days to come, preserve trees and preserve our forests. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you to all of the expert panelists. And now, very quickly, Dr. Maloof is going to present some very special awards. Thank you.
So if you could hand me these, like one
Will
at a
all
time.
of the people who will be receiving awards tonight please come forward?
And I'm going to give these out one at a time, so if you can kind of wait here. And then when your forest gets called, you have a chance to come up and say just very quick sentence. And then if you can wait here, we'll take a group photo afterwards if we wait on stage. So these are forests that are entering the old growth forest network tonight. The first one we would like to include and welcome to the network is Briar Lake Forest. Do we have a representative from Briar Lake here? No? Okay, the next one. And a little sign. Oh, there you go. Did you want to say anything or not? Congratulations.
Thank you. On behalf of the DeKalb County Recreation Parks and Culture Affairs, the Board of Commissioners, and the CEO's office, we are just thrilled to be designated as one of the old growth forests. And I tell you what, 2 parks that we have, nothing is there but trees. And that's the way it will remain.
Yeah, and you can just hang out up here if you would with the tree truck. The next one is Hidden Acres Nature Preserve in DeKalb County. Oh, there you are. Thank you. Cascade Springs Nature Preserve in Fulton County.
I too want to thank all of you all for this wonderful award. I don't know if you all remember the Native American that we'd see in the commercial when he saw trash in the streets and the tear would come down. That's the way I feel about Cascade Nature Preserve. I started in 1997 working in that park, and now it seems like it has just vomited on itself. The flooding, all of the things that happened in that park, we've done everything we could to try to preserve it. We need your help in getting the leadership to give us that $15 million from that T-SPLOS so we can do what we need to do for that park.
Thank you. Next is Cumberlander in Fulton County.
I'm in good company here. I love Cascade Nature Preserve and a lot of the other green spaces here in the Atlanta area. But on behalf of Cumberlander, I just want to say to Catherine and to Joan, I really appreciate the work that you all are doing, and I appreciate you all for bringing us all together, and look forward to all of us working together to keep Atlanta as green as possible. Thank you.
The Dagenese Tract in Fulton County.
So the Department of Watershed Management was required to purchase this property, this 75-acre forest in southwest Atlanta, along with the Beecher Hills, Lionel Hampton tract and the Herbert Green tract, which are also on the list here. So I want to point out the importance of three things for forest preservation in the city, and that is citizen advocates. When Bruce started his advocacy efforts, it coincided with the golden age of green space funding in Atlanta, where it was the Greenway Acquisition Project, which was the result of the city's consent decree for our combined sewer overflows, the Georgia Green Space Program, Governor Barnes's program, and the Quality of Life Bond Program. The golden age of funding was the early 2000s. Public funding matters, and citizen advocacy matters, and environmental federal regulations matter.
Yes. Thank you. Daniel Johnson Nature Preserve in DeKalb County. Congratulations. Welcome.
This is a park that was donated years ago to the city of Atlanta. It has been supported for years by neighbors in the Morningside Lenox Park community. We've been there for 28 years, and I want to particularly thank Catherine Kolb. Every time I go into that park with her, I see something new and beautiful. Thank you, Catherine.
Herbert Taylor Park in DeKalb County. Oh, also, thank you.
These parks are right next to each other. It's 40 acres of beauty in the city of Atlanta.
Deep Dean Park.
Someone once told me that Deep Dean Forest is the lungs of their existence and their chaotic life. To me, that was a very profound and telling statement, and I really appreciate your photograph of the forest lung. So Deep Dean is part of the Olmsted Linear Park Alliance, and we're very grateful to have that beautiful oasis in the Druid Hills neighborhood. And I just want to thank Fernbank and DeKalb County for all the work they do for us and to help us maintain that park. But just on behalf of all of you, you do great work. I love your missions, and thank you.
Thank you. Fernbank Forest. And I just want to mention how the Old Growth Forest Network is nationwide. So, I'm the only full-time staff. How do we do that? We do that by getting a volunteer in each county help us out. And in these counties, Fulton and DeKalb, Eli came and said, I will volunteer to help you, and Catherine volunteered to help too. So thank you to our county coordinators.
What a fantastic event. Thank you, Catherine. Thanks for everybody else who helped make this happen. Fernbank Forest was protected in 1938 as a school in the woods to teach about nature. We've got trees soaring 16 stories high, 300 years old, and it serves as a 65-acre ecological refuge, and it's the place where I fell in love with trees. I'm thrilled to be a part of the Old Growth Forest Network. Fernbank has a wonderful spot amongst other forests across the country, and we thank you, Joan, for everything you do.
Herbert Green Park.
And I'd like to thank Bruce also. He's the reason why we exist. And also Darryl. He helped us so much with the community, which was not very happy about the park initially, but feel a lot better about it because there are trails developed and we've had people to come from as far as north as North Georgia because they were shocked to find a nature preserve such as ours in the middle of the city. And thank you.
Lionel Hampton Beecher Hills Preserve.
Congratulations.
So I have to start with, well, a teacher, my high school teacher. So I was blessed to grow up in a forest, literally. I mean, my elementary school was at the mouth of this park, and so we played in it, and now it's preserved. And so many other people, in addition to Catherine, Kathy, Bill, Jackie, Darryl, Madeline, Councilmember Archibald, of course, our arborists, our great champions, all of you who help every day to preserve our life, our air, our lifeline. So thank you.
Low Water Conservation Garden.
Thank you very much. The Low Water Conservation Garden is owned by the Low Water Garden Club, and we have been their stewards since 1931. The garden was actually sold to the Garden Club in 1963, I think, by Emory University. And it is ours as long as we continue to keep it a green space. So we are absolutely thrilled to be part of this effort. It's 6.5 acres, and we are a virgin old-growth forest. Thanks to Catherine helping us educate our own selves. We knew we had a valuable gem, but we didn't know how valuable. Thanks to Catherine and to Joan. We appreciate it, and Jenny, too, for all her hard work, and the rest of the Low Water Garden Club ladies that are here to support us. Thank you so much.
Osborne Park in DeKalb County.
Thank you so much for this singular honor for Brookhaven, Georgia, to have our Osborne Park Forest included in your Old Growth Forest Network. Old Forest Growth Network, I'm sorry. This lets us have the political capital, the public support, the environmental recognition that we need to take our young city and provide programs that are going to benefit the quality of life of our citizens for generations to come. Thank you so much for all of this.
The Outdoor Activity Center in Fulton, Georgia.
Fulton County.
Hi, everyone. As a new board member for the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance, we are honored to have this distinction, so we're very appreciative of that. As a child, I would walk these trails, and I spent majority of my teenage years cleaning the trails and removing invasive species. So now more than ever, I think it's very important that we are able to protect these forests for future generations to come. With that being said, once again, we are very appreciative of this honor and look forward to the future of being able to partner with the other forests in this network. Thank you.
So
So this is a little unusual tonight to have this many forests going into the network. In most counties, it'll just be one big forest, but here in Atlanta, I feel like you're living in the one big forest, and so what we're doing tonight is recognizing these small pieces of that one big forest that remains. So this is very unusual. And also, with the Old Growth Forest Network, we recognize that the private forests were very important too. The people that own forest land and made the commitment that this forest will never be logged. And these forests aren't necessarily open to the public like all the others are, but we like to recognize the private owners that have made this commitment. So we have what we call the private forest network. And we hope that that will encourage the next generations that inherit that land to also keep it protected. So tonight we are welcoming the McConaughey Nature Preserve into the Old Growth Private Forest Network.
Dan and I have had a very special journey with our old growth forest, our little 5-acre nature preserve that we have. And this has been a journey of about 40 years. And tonight is one of the highlights of that journey for us. Another one of the highlights is discovering that when you remove all the invasives, the honeysuckle, the ivy, the privet, the kudzu, then up pop all the beautiful wildflowers. And that was just a miraculous discovery for us that we see every spring and continually see. And we just feel so honored not only to receive this award, but just to reap the benefits of nature that we get all the time from the beauties of the earth and having an old growth forest. We just feel so honored, Joan and Catherine, to you for the work you're doing and for having us to be a part of your Old Growth Forest Network of Atlanta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd like to add 2 small points. One, we have brought a conservation easement with the Georgia Land Trust on our property. The sign says protected forever. How's that go? And secondly, we're not selfish about this. We take groups around our property, especially April and May, the Georgia Conservancy, all those great outfits. They've all been touring our property. You all come, make an appointment, we'll do it. Thank you.
And the last forest to be added tonight also in the private forest network is a forest where a young couple has taken on themselves to restore their forest land by removing the invasives without using any chemicals at all. And so we'd like to recognize the Mossman Forest and welcome it into the Old Growth Forest Network.
I would especially like to thank Catherine for giving me the excitement and the enthusiasm to clear the invasives from our forest and see what a gem we have. But I also wanted to recognize something that Joan said last night that really resonated with me. And it was that if we lose all of the old growth forests in the United States, what reference are we going to have for what an old growth forest would look like? What's the next generation going to be able to see? So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and one last award. I almost forgot. And it's a surprise to everybody, including Catherine. The Old Growth Forest Network has recognized these people that have really made a difference in their communities. And we give out something we call the Forest Advocate Award. We've only given 6. And we welcome tonight Catherine Kolb into that group.
Let me
Thank you all so very, very much. This is a very special night. I think everyone here feels that. We're going to take just a photo very quickly. Are we standing for photo?
And anybody else who wants to come up is